I waited until I was 50 to start this whole thing. I wasn't really reading books and listening to podcasts for like the prior 30 years. And so, this kind of came at a short time. And then part of my why was my father had passed away of a heart attack when he was 55 and I had turned
Wow.
50. And it's like, wow, like I need to be doing,
Yeah.
leaving a legacy, building up a bigger nest egg than a 401k. And I need to have these horizontal multiple lines of passive income. And that's what got me started.
Welcome to the Threefold Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the podcast where you'll not only learn how you can achieve massive success in multifamily real estate investing, but also how you can simultaneously pursue great relationships with your family and a better walk with God. You can achieve financial freedom through real estate investing without sacrificing the relationships that mean the most to you. Now, here's your host, Lee Yoder.
Welcome back, Threefold Investors. Hope you're having a great week. We've got another great guest today. Really excited to have Jeff McKee here with us. I'll read just a little bit about him, then we'll bring him in. So during the past 5 years, after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, and Tax-Free Wealth, Jeff went from starting with one single family, investing he did a flip in Austin where he lives. Then he purchased a buy and hold duplex in Waco, and then scaled to 1,500 doors as a limited partner. So he started on the passive side with the apartment stuff. Then over the past 18 months, he's become a general partner, gotten on the active side of the multifamily space, and scaled to over 2,500 doors, 200 million in assets under management. Now he's joined 5 masterminds over the past 5 years that's helped him in this journey. So, wow, Jeff, a lot to dig into. Thanks so much for joining us today. Really excited to get talking to you about this stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So Jeff, you've done a whole lot. I definitely want to talk about the multifamily stuff, but tell us what were you doing? Where were you at in your head? Why did you get into multifamily, or why did you get into real estate in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm a lifelong W-2 employee and hadn't really thought about it until I turned the age of 50 and realized, hey, we need to generate some income outside of maxing out the 401ks and all that to look at retirement. So then I started educating myself, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, Wealth Ability, and said, wow, there's a whole nother world out there outside of Wall Street. And there's this whole Main Street, actual real asset investing, cash flow properties, people are paying down the loan. And so I just got, educated along the way. And then we felt like in order to scale, we needed to surround ourselves with people that knew much more than we did and that could help push us and we could learn from others. And that was this whole mastermind and partnering with others. And so initially we joined a single family mastermind here in Austin, Texas. And that was very helpful to get us started. And because you don't know what you don't know. And so we learned about fix and flip. We learned about buy and hold. We learned about the homestead strategy. We learned about, subject to wholesaling, all those kinds of things. And then we started working on that. Like we actually printed some flyers and tried to find motivated sellers. We were buying some Google ad leads that were, they were saying, hey, I want to sell my house. And we'd go meet with a couple sellers. And that was really hard to scale, this whole, because it was my wife and one of our sons invest with us and myself. And we all had W-2 jobs and we're trying to do this on the side, weekends and nights. And that was hard. And so then we ended up partnering with another person on a fix and flip in Austin, in East Austin. We bought it from a wholesaler for $250K. We funded that. We funded the rehab of 70. 7 months later, we sold it for $420. So there was basically 100K gross before holding costs, selling costs, et cetera. After all was said and done, pre-tax, there was 40K. And so our LLC got 20K, our partner got 20K because she managed the rehab. She did, she was the real estate agent on the transaction. And that 20K basically offset our education costs to join that single family mastermind. And so, we learned a lot. We got connected, with other wholesalers that also at the same time, we went and bought a duplex in Waco as a buy and hold. We said, we need to get some passive income. And so we bought the duplex. And then that started. And then we also said, well, looking at the numbers on that over a period of a short time, the numbers weren't that great in terms of reasonably high vacancy. And so we weren't really getting that much. We had a professionally property managed. It wasn't like we were self-managing, but that was just one of the challenges. That was hard to scale too. So we did one fix and flip. one buy and hold. And some of the single family people in our mastermind said, hey, you should come check out this apartment mastermind. It's like, well, what the heck? What's an apartment
Interesting.
mastermind? Oh, multifamily. It's like, no, I don't know. What is that? So
Jeff,
I
let
went to
me
this.
stop you
Yeah.
real quick for a second because it's funny. I started the exact same way. I did a flip and then I did a duplex, and I feel like I came away with the exact same lesson. So you went and did that flip. I don't know how much of your own time and your wife's and your son's that you guys invested, but you come away and it's like, look, 20,000, that's real money, but you're making money at your job too, right? Like you can all go and work your jobs, and within a month or two between the three of you, you've made $20,000, right? It sounds like you
Oh
learned
yeah.
about those same lessons
Yeah,
that I
for
did on that.
sure. The same thing. So on the flip side, we realized in retrospect that was very transactional and there was
Mhm.
no depreciation benefit. And
Yeah,
we were
yeah,
making pretty good W-2. And we're going, wait a minute, this just added to the top line. So we
good
had to
point.
find ways like that expense to offset it. Otherwise, we pay taxes on that.
Yeah,
So I thought the whole thing about real estate investing is that you could do some depreciation. Well,
yep,
people would say a fix and flip isn't investing, right? That's just a
yeah,
transactional
I
way.
would
If
agree.
you want to build some capital, that's a good way to do it. You're starting out. You realize that that isn't going to be your end game because it never ends, right? Because you're going to
Yes,
keep doing flip after flip. You spend
yep,
that money, you do the next one. And so that was the piece there. And on the buy and hold, we looked at the duplex and, we were getting maybe $100 a door. But when you look at, hey, how do we get to 20,000 a month passive income? And it's hard to do with doing single doors, a duplex, because of the components are different in the different houses. They're geographically spread. You oftentimes have different property managers, and then you have the whole loan thing. The 10 loans in your
yeah,
name, and and
yeah.
and so there's all of those things that we realize. The single family. Now we did a cost segregation, so at least on that one, we were able to do a cost seg. We got some depreciation with
We had some
100%
tax
year one,
benefits.
so we
Yeah,
did that on the duplex.
nice.
So that helped us out from an LLC perspective. So we did get some depreciation benefits, and then also when you look back at the first year, you look at the payments. And then we were getting a good principal pay down on that. So our tenants were basically
Nice.
paying off a
Yep.
loan. So that was a nice
Yep.
benefit. But here 5 years later, we're about to sell it. So we've still had it for quite a while. But we just felt looking at the numbers, it was really hard to scale to have substantial passive income monthly on going to a duplex, a quad, single family homes. That was just going to be hard for us to achieve what we wanted to
Right,
achieve.
because just back of the napkin math there, Jeff. You said you're getting $100 per door, which a lot of people say that's good.
Yeah,
That's kind of a goal. Hey, if you want to buy multifamily, shoot for $100 per door per month in cash flow, and so
right.
you hit that. But so that's $200 a month. You're looking for 20,000. That's
Yeah,
exactly 100 duplexes
yeah,
to get you there. So
yeah,
yeah, do you want to go buy 100 duplexes? Your answer was
right.
no. So someone mentions multifamily, you start going down that rabbit hole. What'd you find when you looked into that?
Yeah, so that was another whole mastermind group. It was a lunch that I would go to, a weekly Tuesday lunch here in Austin. Then
Okay.
they talked about going to a real mastermind weekend, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And
Mhm.
there was a mastermind up in Dallas 3 times a year. This is before COVID. They would do in-person training, and they would call it Rat Race to Retirement. Basically, how do you get out of the W-2 rat race?
Yep.
And multifamily syndications, investments as an LP, as a general partner were basically what they were teaching. So early on, they were teaching the limited partner side. So we went
Okay.
to that mastermind. We got jazzed up, educated, all that, took tons of notes. And we ended up joining that group. They had different levels. We joined basically the passive LP level to get in. And
Interesting.
then in the next 6 months, we invested in 5 deals, 2 Dallas, 3 San Antonio, with people in that group, because we had capital and we wanted to learn and get
I love
involved
that.
in the multifamily. So that was that step in the process, was to get smart about basically a new asset class, to surround yourself with people that are basically know more than you do, and to start your journey of education experience. And so that's one of the things we did, is we take action. So we took action on the fix and flip, action on the buy and hold. We took action on passive investing in multifamily so that we could learn from that. Now, maybe every investment wasn't great, but at the same time, we just didn't sit back and say, oh, I'll wait till next year to do something. And so that was something that, I'm proud of, as a family, is that
Yeah.
we agreed,
Yep.
to take action.
Yeah. That's really interesting, Jeff. I didn't know that. Almost I feel like all of the master or no, like the conferences, the meetups, the boot camps, it's all about being active. That's really interesting that it's about being passive. And I think there's so much wisdom in that to say, I mean, if you don't have a job that you hate and you're making good income in your job, then it can be a great option to just take some extra cash that you have and get it in. Cause yeah, not only does it pays you today. That's what I love about multifamily. You can make money today on quarterly or monthly distributions, and it's building a nest egg, just like the stock market does.
Yeah.
And you get tax benefits. But also what you mentioned there, Jeff, is you were learning a ton because you own part of this property. You're seeing, I mean, you get to see maybe to some degree their underwriting and how they're projecting future rents and future cash flows, and then how they're going to manage the property and operate it and reposition it. So you're jumping in, you're going to make money right now, increase your income, have some tax benefits to go along with it, but you're also educating yourself. So I love that they go that route because I think that can fit so many people. Tell me a little bit more about your mindset, and maybe some people would think that like you settled for being a passive investor. I think that can be the end game for a lot of people, and a great end game because you don't have to work at it. But so tell me a little bit about your mindset and why you liked it, maybe what you didn't like about it, if there was anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that was our mindset, was to get in the game. The foot in the door was, you have equity, whether it's in a self-directed IRA, whether it's cash, and then you're working with the partner team to help fund the deal and then learn along the way. So that was our entry into multifamily. Then on one of the deals, I actually took it a step further, and I became a key principal, a guarantor on the debt with another partner. And so I wasn't technically part of the GP team. I was still an LP, but I took it further and I went through the whole Freddie Mac process of getting qualified as a key principal guarantor. So that was interesting as well. And that probably got me started on about, becoming more active. But there are a group of people that are perfectly fine being passive investors. Maybe they've got the W-2, they've got extra income coming in, or they just choose not to be actively involved in an apartment community. And there's many people like that. And then there's people like me and my wife, my son, where we wanted to grow bigger, faster, and we felt going the general partner route for us was the next step in the process.
Yeah. Did you have a good experience as an LP, Jeff? Was that where you thought, did you think, hey, money's being put, like we're making a good return, and it was a good, but it's like, hey, we're making 10% on our money. If we go be, general partners, we can, do a lot more. Was it kind of that idea?
Yeah. I would say when we first joined that mastermind group, about 2/3 of the members were passive like us at the time, and 1/3 were active. Over the years, it started getting to more 50-50, 75% GP, 25% LP. And so for the GPs, the general partners, they would need to go raise a lot of outside capital from the group. In the early days, you could fund a deal from everybody in the group, the LPs. So they had the private Facebook group. Hey, we've got this deal. Come talk to us, But then over time, what was happening was the education material was being changed to say, here are the 10 ways you can get paid as a general partner. And the LPs like us go, well, wait a minute, we didn't know about the acquisition fee. We didn't know about the asset management fee. We didn't know maybe some of these things. It's like, oh, you mean I could potentially raise capital and I might get a small share of the general partnership for investing my own money, but also friends, family, my network of people. It's like, wow, those are multiple ways I could get paid. Hey, I could get paid as being a key principal, a small part of the GP. I could get paid for this thing called, at-risk capital, earnest money down. It's like, wow. So if you have extra capital, would you want to put money towards that to own a small share of a very large pie? And that was what enticed us to learn more about becoming general partners, was the next step.
Yeah. And Jeff, just real quick, by key principle, I'm assuming you mean they kind of they get to use the general partners get to use your net worth and your liquidity that you've had from working your W-2 over a career, you and your wife. And so you're signing on the loan. Now you did a Freddie Mac, so it's a non-recourse loan. So that's very low risk for you, but you're signing on the loan. And so now the general partner team gets to use your net worth and your liquidity to satisfy the agency loan, which is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, to satisfy their requirements.
Exactly. Yeah, there's
Nice.
three components of a key principle. It's the net worth, liquidity, and then real estate experience. Those are the
Right.
three things.
Yep.
And so they look for people, and you're looking for being able to have net worth equal to or more than the loan amount. And then the
Yep.
post-closing liquidity is basically having liquid funds from the KPs of 10% of the loan amount. So
Okay.
that's some of the
Yep.
metrics that they're looking for.
Yep.
And then basically you go through a whole vetting process with the lender to become qualified to
Yeah.
be, in this case, a Freddie Mac key principal. So then since then I've done, Fannie Mae as well, and I've done bridge debt as well as a
Yeah.
KP. But yeah, it's a very interesting process, doing the whole personal financial statement and
Yeah.
the real estate schedule of all your assets. And so, yeah, it's interesting.
It's getting more and more complicated for you to fill that stuff out, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you kind of, your lenders want to see it every quarter anyway.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the first time was kind of a challenge. And then when you start getting into 15, 18 deals, it gets pretty long.
Yeah, but you just keep adding to it. But that's
Yeah.
cool, Jeff. And what I'm hearing from you is you're like, then I was a KP, and then some people want us to raise money, and it's all because, I mean, I guess I'm putting words in your mouth, but it's because you're part of these groups. It's because you're part of a mastermind. So now you've got partners right there that you're getting to know, that you're learning alongside, and they come to you and go, "Hey, let's just partner on this." And that's what's cool about multifamily is it's a big enough pie that we can split it up. So, tell me maybe just a little bit more about that, what that community and just being part of these masterminds has done to like really accelerate your growth.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's all about. It's like a team sport. You have different positions on a team and people play different roles. And so you learn that. And what's your value add to this team? Is it your initial capital? Is it, your net worth and liquidity? Is it your experience? Maybe you've got property management, construction, asset management experience. Maybe
Yeah.
you're great with broker relationships on the front end and acquiring deals on market. And so everybody has their strengths, and you're trying to pull people together that have those strengths. Some people are great at capital raising. They have an extensive network and they're able to go bring their own and other people's capital. And so then you're trying to assemble this team. And then in many cases, you're doing multiple deals with the same set of people once you figure out, the know, like,
Yep.
and trust.
Jeff, just looking back now that you're in multifamily, I'm assuming you're not buying single families or duplexes anymore.
That is correct.
All multifamily. Would you recommend that people start out with that though, or would you recommend they jump into multifamily?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to a lot of people over the last 5+ years, and that's one of the themes is you've got to find what works for you. For some people that have money, they may want to skip the building equity and
Okay.
getting some capital by doing the fix and flip, the subject to the wholesaling. They may want to skip that. All right.
Yeah,
If you're,
good point.
like if you were like us, we probably could have skipped that. Now,
Yeah.
other
Yep.
people that are in their 20s and 30s starting out, that is one way to get some capital. You
Yep.
don't have money, but you have time, and maybe you're willing to learn and hustle. Well,
Yep.
then you could go with this strategy, say, hey, I'm not going to sneeze at 20K on a fix and flip. If I can replicate that, then all of a sudden I start getting to 100K liquid. Then I can go to a multifamily team and say, hey, I have some earnest money down. I could put half of that towards an LP position in that deal.
Yep.
I can bring something to you as a team. So that would be a strategy. But for us, we learned pretty quickly it wasn't going to help us to our end game as fast as we wanted to go. Because also the other thing is I waited until I was 50 to start this whole thing. I wasn't really reading books and listening to podcasts for like the prior 30 years. And so, this kind of came at a short time. And then part of my why was my father had passed away of a heart attack when he was 55 and I had turned
Wow.
50. And it's like, wow, like I need to be doing,
Yeah.
leaving a legacy, building up a bigger nest egg than a 401k. And I need to have these horizontal multiple lines of passive income. And that's what got me started. And then also thinking like an entrepreneur and a business and not, just like an employee, like the whole cash flow quadrant, that kind of opened my eyes of, geez, I need to get away from paying the 37% federal tax. I need to get to the 0 and keep more of that. Even if I make top line less, I'm going to keep more. And so that was some of the things that opened my eyes. And the other thing too was the whole 401k. Yeah, it's all tax deferred. But then when you take it out, you could have bought, a fund in there 40 years ago. When you take it out at retirement age, you're getting taxed at your ordinary income then. It's not long-term capital gains. And people
Yeah.
say, oh, your ordinary income is going to be super low when you're in your 60s. Okay, maybe, but the tax rates are historically low today. Are they going to be historically low 10, 20, 30 years from
Yeah.
now? Maybe,
Right.
maybe not. So
Yep.
that was the other thing, is like, hey, I want to try and put some of this money to use now and
Yep.
basically generate this passive income.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jeff. And I mean, what a great why. Kind of getting it to 50 and remembering your father and hey, what's that mean for me? And man, yeah, just great motivation there. But Jeff, what I want to say is, you waited till you were 50, but man, since then, I mean, since you got in, you've taken off like a rocket ship. So what's maybe been a challenge, or maybe a little bit of how have you been able to scale so quickly?
Yeah.
And do so much, and maybe what's been some of the challenges of doing that?
One of the things we did is we also got some tax advice. Like, we would go, pay a lot of money for mentoring groups. We pay a lot of money for professional advice. So we hired a company to specifically work with us on tax planning and strategy, as well as asset protection. And one of the things they recommended, looking at our finances and where we were, what we wanted to do in terms of scaling is, hey, your wife, my wife Cindy, we've been married 33 years. She should probably quit her 30-hour-a-week W-2 job. She's been a paralegal in Austin, and she could become a real estate professional, work on the multifamily business and get hours qualifying her. Then that would, all those losses that we would invest in, let's say after tax monies, would offset my W-2 to eventually lower our marginal tax rate, hopefully eventually to zero, and get some big refunds from the IRS. So that was a plan, that we executed on. And so that was one of the things that we started to do. And then to take it a step further, we also cashed out her 401k, and so we said, hey, because she waited until she was 55 to leave her employer, so she didn't pay the 10% early withdrawal fee. It was just the 20% federal taxes, and then we would invest those monies into multifamily as LPs, generating bonus depreciation, cost seg, a big negative K1 that more than offset what we had paid into federal tax, and then we get a big refund from the IRS for what we did there. And so that was part of what we did, listening to hiring professionals. Yeah, it's expensive, but that really helped us out. We set up a Wyoming holding company, LLC, that is basically the parent of a bunch of other LLCs we have. And so we listened to them about, and when we also moved into short-term rentals as a way to generate passive income. And so there's different strategies that we've learned over the last few years, in addition to moving heavily into multifamily general partners.
Yeah. What I hear as a general theme, Jeff, you guys have really invested in yourselves and invested in education. I mean, that is really what's been, I think, a real driver for your incredible growth that you've seen, and helps that you're all in. And I love that too. I kind of want to hit on that part. This is a family affair for you. And your wife Quentin is in it full time and running the Airbnb. Your son's involved. What's been the good and bad of that? Is this something you guys have really enjoyed, and what's been kind of some of the benefits or maybe some of the difficulties with it?
Yeah. We're Christians, and this certainly brought us closer together, as a family, and creating a family LLC and thinking about legacy. I was actually one of the other masterminds unrelated to these real estate ones is just, how to accelerate, and that mastermind that I joined a few years ago, I'm a co-author of a book that came out last year, and it's Bringing Value, Solving Problems, and Leaving a Legacy. And my chapter in the book is about going from single family to multifamily and scaling, with the family. But part of it was like leaving a legacy, and it's not just the financial legacy. I mean, it's this whole working relationship. It's like, I know some people may start a business and then they want to turn it over to the kids, but the kids may or may not want it. But this one, we wanted to involve the kids, early on and what we're doing. And we've got 2 more kids that are a little bit involved, and we may have them get more involved in short-term rentals that could be interesting to them more so than multifamily.
It's been a good experience overall. You guys have enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, it's been a great experience. The other thing that we've learned related to this is this whole concept of infinite banking and using whole life policies. But we use that to help fuel our real estate investment business, but also basically be your own banker. It's like try and rely on your own family. And then if a family member takes out a loan from a policy, they need to pay it back, right? That's what the Rockefellers did, and that's why the
Yep.
Rockefeller family still has money. And so,
Yeah.
it's things like that. It's things that you learn and you implement, even if it's a small scale to start out. But all these interesting concepts that I wasn't familiar with, and then we learn more and more. It's like, well, hey, that's a good one for our family to execute. Let's go do that one.
Jeff, I've got kind of a couple sum up questions, but I'm going to ask you a really selfish question first. Since you're still finding deals, how in the world are you and your partners still finding deals in this crazy market?
Yeah, yeah. So the other thing to scale up the multifamily, we actually joined another mastermind
Mhm.
that is very focused on general partners. There's about 150 members. This way, our son could be part of one membership as a family unit, and he could go to all the training, all the events, all those things, and he's included. Where the other group we were part of, it wasn't quite the same way, the way that that was handled. And so
Okay.
this group, and the other thing about this group is they want you to get your first deal in 9 months. As it turns out, we got our first co-general partner deal in the first 30 days of being in this group, and then we've done 10 deals in 18 months as co-GPs.
So what your answer there is because you're partnering with people. So you've got other people
Yeah,
finding deals. It's not just you finding the deals.
it's that whole teamwork thing. So about
Yeah.
a third of these partners are the acquisition specialists meeting with brokers every day. 90% of our deals are on market, 10% are off market. The
Yeah.
off market deals are from prior relationships our people have with the seller. And then the 90% are basically competitive bidding, doing the LOIs with lots of other multifamily groups. Our deals, the purchase price are anywhere from a low of 5 million purchase up to maybe a high of 60 million. So just below the institutional. So ours are typically 100 units up to 800 units. And the reason we started 100 units in this space, and like we skipped the whole small multifamily. We
Yeah.
didn't want to do a 10, 20, 30, 40 unit because who's going to manage that for you? You don't
Yeah.
want a job. You don't want to do it yourself. It's hard to get a great third party property manager in that city to do a great job managing
It
your
is.
asset. It's just
Yep.
it's just hard to do. So we started 100 units as the criteria. If you get to 3, 4, 500 units like we usually do, then you can have the best property managers in that area. And all of our deals with third party property managed, the agencies,
Yep.
Fannie and Freddie, they require that. And so that's just part of our model. So a third are the acquisition, a third are people like us, and we do the key principal role, the guarantor. We do the earnest money down. We provide liquidity upfront to the team, and then we do capital raising. And so
Yep.
that's what I focus a lot of
Great.
time on. And then a third of the group, they manage the asset once we own it. They're the
Okay.
asset managers that
Nice.
manage the property managers,
Love
the
it.
asset managers that manage the construction crew that's doing the rehab, the turns, adding value to inside the units and outside the community. So that's how our group is broken. And it's all basically a big team sport. We
I
might
love
have a
it.
low
Yeah.
of 4 co-general partners up to maybe 10 on a deal.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. Just so you're with more of the capital raising. Let me ask you a question about that. What are you seeing when you're talking to limited, because you're talking to LPs, you're talking to people that, do have a little bit extra capital. They want to put their money to work in multifamily. They don't want to do it as a job. They've got a job or maybe they're retired and they don't want another, they don't want to go back to work and be a GP. So they want to stay on the limited partner side and just invest their capital. What do you see as the biggest hesitation for them, maybe the biggest fear? And then how do you, I don't want to say sell it. To me, it sells itself, but how are you selling it? How are you telling them, hey, this is why you should invest in multifamily?
Right. I mean, I think a fear, and some of them, it's a fear of the first deal. It's a fear of the
Okay.
unknown. It's like, hey, this is a real asset. It's not a Wall Street. It's not stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. I'm familiar with that. I just turn money over to the broker and it does its thing. But like, hey, I'm putting this thing in, let's just call it, a black hole. And then it starts, getting distributions after time quarterly. And then there's theoretically a big payout at the end when we go sell the asset or we do a refinance. And so for some people, that's the uneasiness, right? But then when we start going through what's a typical 5-year hold of a Class B or a Class C multifamily apartment community, what does that look like? Someone puts in 100K, we do an 8% preferred return that's cumulative.
Yep.
If we don't pay the first year, we roll out to the next year. Our returns are, we target typically 15 to 18% internal rate of return. We target doubling investors' money, in 5 to 6 years. And it's a long-term game. And so we also explain, because people go, well, hey, if I need the money tomorrow after I put 100K in, can I get it back? It's like, it's not that kind of investment. So
Right.
if you think you might need it in the next 5 years, this may not be a good investment for you,
Right.
or you may want to ratchet down how much you put in.
Sure.
And
There you
so
go.
some people appreciate the fact that it is a long-term game, and
Yeah.
they can't do like the stock market. If it went down like 2 years ago, March, they just pulled everything out, and some people never got back in the game. You can't do that in multifamily. Like when COVID came around, some people, if they could, they might have hit the button, give me all my money back, but that would have been a big mistake
Oh,
because we got
huge.
inflation, we got
Yep.
huge rent growth. And so some people prefer part of their portfolio to be in the long game.
Right. Love it. Yeah, no, really good point. Really good point. Jeff, well, I'll just ask you, I always like to ask at the end, what's the key ingredient in your opinion for, to be a successful real estate investor? Let's take it on the passive side. You kind of just started talking about it. Instead of active, what's it take for someone to be a good, a good, successful, limited partner investor in multifamily real estate?
Yeah, I mean, I think having access to deal flow, across different sponsor teams, across different asset classes, across different geographies. I mean, I think that way you get a good view of what's out there. I mean, honestly, lately, what we've seen a little bit more stable returns on basically the highly stabilized apartment communities. We're having, because of COVID and supply chain challenges, like trying to get packages of appliances, trying to get crews in to go turn these units and do all the rehab we need, to get the flooring, to get the paint. Like paint, there's a shortage of that.
Yeah.
And those communities that we've been rehabbing over the last couple of years, those have been more of a challenge recently versus the one that we're operating at 98% occupancy.
Right.
Those tend to be a bit more stable. Now, some people like the deeper value add because we typically target a refinance at year 3. Some investors like a velocity of capital. I'd like to see a half of my capital back in 3 years, and
Okay.
then the other
Yeah.
half, back in 6 years, right? And other investors say, look, I'm okay if you just leave all my money in the deal and you do regular distributions and just give me a big cash flow at the end.
Yep.
And so some investors, depending what stage they're at, they have varying degrees of needs related to, I'm looking for high cash flow, I'm looking for high returns, I'm a low tolerance to risk, I'm a high tolerance to risk. And so we
Yep.
try and look at, and so we also source various deals, class B, class C, large and small,
Sure.
in different communities. We do tier 1 cities like Atlanta. We've just been doing a couple big ones there. We do tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities. We typically do Texas to Florida in the landlord friendly states. That's where we focus our energy, and that's where the acquisitions are found. And that's where most of my investors are very interested. Even if they live up north in the Northwest in California, they want to invest in this area, the Sun Belt, because that's where the net in migration is moving.
Sure.
That's where we're seeing job growth. A lot of the companies are moving to Texas and Florida. Anyway, so that's what some passive investors are looking for, is the macroeconomics of that area, and then the microeconomics of that specific deal, including crime rates, including very specific things for that property when they start analyzing each deal. But I think deal flow across different asset classes and different sponsors is a good way for passive investors to have choices. And then also to spread the capital out. Let's just say someone has, 150, instead of 150 in one deal, you might think 50, 50, 50. And so that's another way people can diversify, risk, is to spread it around, and also to take your time, take a deep breath, right? Like, hey, I don't need to put it all in the market right now. Let me wait for a good deal to come and be patient. And so those are some of the good passive investors, that we've seen, over time, just deal flow, taking their time, being flexible with the asset class and the city.
Sure. And if they were to follow your path, Jeff, joining a mastermind or a real estate meetup, maybe your local RIA, is probably a great way to get deal flow, and also to learn. So maybe jumping into something like that, they're going to learn, they're going to meet people, they're going to have better deal flow, and then you can pick the deals you want to jump into as an LP.
Yeah. And I think for any age group, biggerpockets.com is a good place to start. If you want to scale, you can go to the pro. It's not very expensive. You get access to the forums and put in your own comments. So the Bigger Pockets is a pretty good one. And then the meetup.com, whatever city you're in, go to meetup.com, look at multifamily. You may find a meetup group, meeting for lunch. Like there's here in Austin, there's the Tuesday lunch, there's another Thursday, there's an every Monday. I was just a Quest Trust event last night. night, an in-person event where passive investors go. It's like, hey, I've got IRA money. And then there was some family people we know that were presenting. They're based in San Antonio, and they were presenting to the group all about multifamily. So there's in-person meetups. There's a lot of virtual meetups, and
Great.
surrounding
Yeah.
yourself, like-minded people and meeting new people. The whole networking thing, is has been a great strategy
That's
for us
awesome.
to meet others. And then, some of the paid masterminds have certainly worked out for us.
Well, Jeff, let's switch gears just a little bit. So let me turn this question around a little bit, or a little bit different flavor to it. You jumped in, like you said, you and your family, you're taking action. You've scaled really quickly. You've seen a lot of success. Real estate's going well for you. But what's a key ingredient to make sure that you're keeping your priorities straight? Your faith, following Christ is important to you. Your family's clearly important to you. You still got the full-time job and you're doing all this real estate stuff. So what's a key ingredient to have success where it really counts, in your faith and your family, while having success in real estate investing?
Yeah. And I think it's, people talk about balance and priorities. And so I think you actually need to block some of this out on your calendars, going to church virtually or in person, the family, blocking out family time and keeping that away from meetings. So I think, prioritizing those activities and balancing that, as well as the conversations. I mean, obviously sometimes some of our conversations can turn 100% into real estate, but we need to take it a step back and talk about, kind of happiness and vacations, family time. So yeah, definitely, I think keeping your priorities straight, and having the balance across the family, and then spending time with friends as well. And some of them are not involved in real estate, so not 100% of the things in the circles we run in are real estate focused. And I think that helps you give a different perspective on life, and understand that, and then that helps ground you on like where you can add value, and it's not always just about the business side of real estate.
Absolutely. You mentioned a few. Do you have a good book recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, for many people, I would definitely do, cash flow quadrant. So,
Okay.
that would be one. The other one is a book called Who Not How, from Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy.
Yep.
And then that was one, like I actually hired my first virtual assistant, like 4 months ago. Right. And it's just people that can help you, whether it's, passive investing and looking at deals. There's things that you can have other resources help you with on these repetitive tasks. Like I'll shoot a video and the virtual assistant can repeat that task, whatever it is. And so the Who Not How was very interesting on how some of those activities you can basically delegate and then work on. What are you best at? What is your dollar per productive hour that you should be spending time? And maybe it's family time, right? It gives you more family time when some of these other things can be delegated. And that's one thing I've been learning, is to do some of that, to try and free up where I can add value to most to other people.
Yeah. I love that, Jeff. I just read that recently too. And, haven't hired my first virtual assistant, so I didn't take it to heart enough. But no, I mean, so much power in that. Well, I hired my wife after I read that book. So put my wife to work. And oh my goodness, I mean, it's helped so much. She's done so much. I love your story of how, hey, you didn't hear about real estate and maybe take the red pill or whatever you want to say, find the little purple book and Rich Dad Poor Dad until later. But hey, better late than never. And you jumped in and look at where you're at now, where you're, really setting yourself up and your family, for generations, like leaving a legacy, like you talked about. So I would love for people to follow in your footsteps. If people want to, maybe learn more about you, maybe reach out to you, maybe invest with you. I see your website there on the screen behind you, and we'll put that in the show notes, at McKeeCapitalGroup.com. Is that the best place for people to find out more about you, or where should they find you?
Yeah, that's the best place. Yeah, just McKee, McKeeCapitalGroup.com. And then on there, I've got a short video about, a lot of what we just talked about. So it's like a 10-minute video. I wrote an ebook about, passive investing and multifamily, just a 101 version, a beginner's guide. It's like maybe 10, 11 pages. And so it's a super light read, but it gives people a little bit more detail of what we just talked about. And then I have, my free download of the book, The Bringing Value, Solving Problems, Leaving a Legacy. So there's a free download of that whole book there. And there's like 39 authors and my little chapters in there as well. And then, there's a way that you can connect with me. It's also, Jeff at McKeeCapitalGroup.com if you want to send me an email. But and that's one of my goals, is to help 1,000 people reach financial freedom through passive investing.
This has been great, man. Before we let you go, I always like to ask, how might my listeners and I be praying for you in the coming weeks?
Yeah, yeah. I would say, yeah, just pray for us and family and friends that recovering from COVID.
Yeah.
That we've had several family members,
Yeah.
impacted. Fortunately, none have passed away, but we've
Yeah.
definitely had some impact. So yeah, I would just pray for our family and friends.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. That's nationwide, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
Oh
yeah, we've
yeah.
gotten a lot of that, and yeah, hopefully we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and getting out of this. But yeah, still people recovering. So, great prayer request. We'd be happy to pray alongside you
Yeah.
with that, Jeff. But hey, man, thanks so much. This has been really good. You provided us with so much value, so I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Lee. Yeah. Thanks for being a great podcast host and hosting us here.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care. God bless.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode. I hope you'll take action on what you've learned today. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving Lee a 5-star rating and review. And check him out on threefoldrei.com. Until next time, 1 Timothy 6:17.